Okay, we're going to kick off this explainer with a truly massive number. 3,587,538. That is the record-breaking total attendance of the 1994 FIFA World Cup hosted in the United States. It's just a staggering figure, right? Especially when you consider that it happened in a country where, at the time, soccer wasn't even considered a major mainstream sport. Yet, it became the most financially successful tournament in history. And that attendance record? It remains completely unbroken to this day. So that brings up a pretty crucial question for us to answer. How exactly did this monumental modern scale grow out of such incredibly humble origins? Because today, we expect millions of fans, billions of dollars in TV rights, and the whole world basically coming to a standstill for these matches. But it wasn't always like this. For decades, the dream of a true global soccer stage was totally stuck in limbo, and trying to pull it off was seen as a massive and honestly, maybe completely foolish gamble. Welcome to our explainer on the evolution of the FIFA World Cup. Over the next few minutes, we're going to dive into its scrappy origins, the intense on-pitch drama, the hard data behind the game's absolute greatest legends, and the sheer cultural explosion of the beautiful game's ultimate showcase. Section 1. The Ultimate Global Gamble, a Risky Beginning. Let's start by zooming all the way out to the really fragmented landscape of early international soccer. Way back in 1872, the very first official international match was played between Scotland and England. But as the sport grew and FIFA was officially founded in 1904, they ran into a major roadblock. The Olympics were the big authority at the time, and they had a super strict rule: amateurs only. Well, as soccer rapidly professionalized, the world's absolute best players were effectively banned from the biggest stage. So FIFA eventually made this really bold move to just divorce the Olympics entirely so they could get professional players out there, deciding to host its own tournament in 1930. Just look at this extreme contrast. Back in 1930, FIFA chose Uruguay to host that inaugural World Cup. But the timing, right smack in the middle of the Great Depression, meant it required an incredibly costly weeks-long trip across the Atlantic by boat. 2 months before kickoff, not a single European country had even pledged to go. Eventually, only 13 teams made the trip. Now, compare that incredibly risky boat trip to the upcoming 2026 World Cup. 48 teams, 104 matches, and 3 host nations. I mean, it's a completely different universe. Section 2. Drama on the pitch. Controversial moments. Let's zoom in on the human elements, where micro-stories and these really high-stakes decisions become legendary. Because you really can't understand the history of this tournament without diving into the intense controversies that defined it, and honestly, no controversy is bigger than the 1986 quarterfinal in Mexico City. Sure, everyone knows Diego Maradona's infamous Hand of God goal, where he literally punched the ball into the net against England. But beyond that, there's a fascinating, bitter feud between the two match officials that reads exactly like a true crime thriller. So how do 2 top-tier officials let a blatant handball slide? Well, consider this. You had referee Ali bin Nasser from Tunisia, who spoke French and English. On the sideline, you had linesman Bogdan Dachev from Bulgaria, who spoke German and Spanish. They literally didn't speak a word of the same language. On top of that, FIFA rules at the time strictly forbade linesmen from discussing decisions with referees. So because they couldn't speak to each other and were totally boxed in by these rigid rules, the officials were forced to communicate purely through hesitant glances across the pitch. The Tunisian referee completely deflected the blame, pointing the finger directly at his Bulgarian assistant. Bin Nasser said he hesitated, looked over, saw Dachev running toward the center of the pitch instead of raising his flag, and just followed FIFA instructions to trust his better-positioned colleague. But Dachev forcefully clapped back. He claimed he knew something was irregular but felt totally gagged by FIFA's non-communication rules. And then, highlighting this deeply personal grudge, he actually claimed the referee was only fit to officiate games between camels in the desert. It is just an absolutely wild, petty insult. That war of words lasted for decades, completely ruining both of their international careers. Neither man ever officiated a World Cup match again. Now, while we see intense individual drama like the Hand of God, historical records show the tournament has also had to impartially navigate massive geopolitical tensions without taking ideological sides. For example, during the 1970 qualifiers, Israel faced boycotts from Arab nations and a refusal to play from North Korea. Yet the tournament proceeded, with FIFA simply navigating the logistical group placements. Similarly, the 1978 World Cup was held in Argentina just 2 years after a military coup. Despite all the global controversies, none of the qualifying nations boycotted, and the tournament was played exactly as scheduled. It really highlights why this event matters. It consistently functions as this rare, neutral ground where the sport supersedes our incredibly fractured world. Section 3. The GOAT Debate. Messi, Pele, Maradona. Let's pan out again and objectively look at the data behind the legends. Because once the drama settles, it's the numbers that cement a player's legacy. When we objectively compare the raw output and major milestones side by side, a pretty fascinating picture emerges. You've got Messi's incredible longevity and modern-era dominance with 178 international caps and over 500 club goals. Then there's Maradona, who, despite a lower goal tally due to a more nomadic and turbulent career, absolutely secured his iconic status with that legendary 1986 victory. And then there's Pele. He stands completely alone with 3 World Cup titles, a feat that is still unmatched in the entire history of the sport. But since total goals can be heavily skewed by the length of a career, looking at goals per game tells the real story of scoring efficiency. And Pele holds a staggering historical average of nearly 1 goal every single match, 0.92 to be exact. Messi follows closely with a brilliant 0.77, while Maradona's genius as a playmaker rather than a pure striker is perfectly reflected in his 0.50 average. It really puts into perspective the distinctly different types of greatness these 3 players brought to the pitch. Section 4. The American Soccer Boom. Impact of the 1994 Cup. Finally, let's bring it all home and look at how the sheer scale of the tournament sparked a complete cultural and economic transformation in the United States. We started off with the total attendance of the '94 tournament, but this number right here, 68,991, represents the average match attendance during that World Cup. Think about that for a second. Nearly 70,000 people per game. It was an absolutely massive audience that proved the American market was incredibly hungry for soccer, setting a record that remains completely unbroken today, even with all the modern expansions of the tournament we've seen since. Honestly, 1994 acted as a massive domino effect. U.S. Soccer literally promised FIFA they would launch a professional league in exchange for those hosting rights. That planted the very first seeds for Major League Soccer. It also heavily fueled the incredible 1999 Women's World Cup, which led to the creation of the NWSL. Add in the formal licensing of over 20,000 coaches, elite youth pipelines, and the construction of over 25 soccer-specific stadiums across the country, and you're looking at the entire foundation of a modern sporting ecosystem. And we can track the clear steps from a fragile, struggling domestic league to a massive economic powerhouse. When MLS launched back in 1996, it was a tiny 10-team experiment. By 2002, they were actually fighting for survival, with teams folding and attendance dipping way below 14,000. But fast forward to 2023, and the script has completely flipped. The league now averages 23,000 fans per game. Expansion franchises are valued at over $500 million, and they've secured a $2.5 billion global media deal. Talk about a glow-up. Now, the upcoming 2026 tournament is poised to scale this landscape even further. By expanding to 48 teams and hosting across the US, Canada, and Mexico, FIFA projects they're going to sell over 5 million tickets. They're aiming to absolutely shatter those legendary 1994 records with an unprecedented, multi-nation mega event. So, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. If a 24-team tournament in 1994 built the entire foundation of modern American soccer from the ground up, what new cultural heights is a 48-team, 5 million fan mega event going to reach in 2026? As the scale of this tournament absolutely explodes, just how much bigger can the beautiful game get?